What's up guys, it's Jono, and today I want to share with you one of the most powerful things I have personally built. It's how you can essentially automate the entire recruitment process, right? So how you can go from essentially finding applicants, right? And essentially sending them a contract. And you can do this in 3 button clicks, and every single email, every single text message, every single thing is going to be fully automated, right? You really just have to review the initial applicant to make sure that they pass your initial screening, and then maybe interview them once or twice, and that's it. Everything else is going to take care of itself. And the cool thing is that if you're like me and you get hundreds of people applying every single day for positions, it will save you hours and hours and hours every single day. So if that sounds like something that you guys are interested in and you want to save some time, right? And you don't want to have to constantly be doing the same mundane tasks over and over and over again, in this video, we're going to be talking about how you can do just that. So in front of me, I'm going to show you guys right now what exactly this looks like. So I have a simple Google Sheet. Now, keep in mind that I actually created this particular Google Sheet approximately, I want to say less than 2 days ago. And the first thing I want to point out here is that we actually have 457 different people applying, right? 457 people, it's like over 200 people every single day, right? So it's just a ton of applicants. And for me to spend my time going through this, it would take me a long time, right? It would likely take hours a day, and I can instead go through this in minutes every single day. And essentially what happens here is that we get applicants coming in from Indeed, right? And instead of having to log into the Indeed platform and reply to those applicants, what automatically happens is we send them an email, right? Actually a series of emails, and we ask them to fill out some screening questions. So I'll show you what those questions look like here. Just give me a second here while I pull up this page. So as soon as they fill out an application on Indeed, we actually send them to this page, and they have to enter in particular questions. Now, keep in mind, this isn't for one job, this isn't for 2, this is for every job that we're hiring for. So we have a positions field down here, so they can apply for the sales position, the coordinator position, the marketing position, photo editor, video editor, and you can do this with any number of positions. It doesn't have to be these, but these are just the ones that we're hiring for. So they can go ahead and select those positions, enter in the information that I want to collect for that particular hire. Keep in mind that depending on the position they select, certain fields will show and certain fields will be hidden. And then once they select that information, it's going to automatically come back into this form. It's going to populate, and all I have to do is look over the data that they've submitted very quickly, or I can get somebody else on my team to do this and review it, right? 2 things are going to happen. Either they're going to be rejected, which in many cases they automatically get rejected based on the criteria or the information that they provide us with. So for example, if they're a sales rep and they've had like 0 or 1 year of sales experience, they're automatically rejected, right? But if they don't get automatically rejected, then somebody on our team will have to go through and either reject them or approve them. If they get rejected, we'll send an email to them letting them know in a couple days. And then if they get approved, then what happens is that we automatically send in a request to have somebody interview. So just to kind of give you guys perspective, what happens is they apply on Indeed, they get an email like this. It says, "Hey Jono, it's Alex, thanks for applying to our position. The next step is to fill out a form below." They click this form, they open it up. Okay, well that's not very promising here. Anyways, that form should work, and what that form looks like is something like this. And then, so I'm obviously gonna have to go back and fix that because I just created this workflow like yesterday. But once they fill out these questions, then the next step is going to be that we come in and we click screening. And as soon as we click on this screening button here, and we go back to the particular candidate, then we can see that they have received another email, right? Very, very quickly, they'll receive another email. "Hey Jono, it's Alex. Thanks for filling out our questionnaire. We'd love to schedule a first round interview." They can go in, schedule an interview, right? As soon as they select a date and a time, right? It's going to automatically load in their information here. They can click schedule, and they'll get a series of different emails or text messages or WhatsApp messages, just letting them know that we have that appointment confirmed and that they're going to be talking to us on Google Meet at the time that they selected. So just bear with it for a couple seconds here. The next email is going to load in here, and then they're just going to get emails letting them know, hey, to jump on the meeting when it comes up. And then if Alex goes ahead, who would be the first round interviewer, and he likes the candidate, well then he can just go back to the sheet here and he can click approved, right? And as long as he clicks approved here, then what's gonna happen is it's gonna request them to book a second interview with me, and I will go ahead and I'll talk to that person. And as long as I like that person and I wanna hire that person with Alex's, if we make that decision together, then what we're gonna do is we're gonna onboard that person and send them a contract to sign. And that's essentially it. You can see this email came out next. Congratulations, we'd like to schedule a second round interview between you and Jono. There's just a delay of 1 minute on the actual confirmation of the interview. So that's why that other message hasn't appeared yet, but it will appear in the next minute or so. And that's essentially it, right? So we'll send over that contract to them. If we both decide to hire that person, they'll be onboarded onto their team. We can add them into Slack automatically. And all of these little, this whole process is just done in 3 clicks and 2 interviews, right? So, and even the interviews, there's different ways around it where you can minimize your time interviewing. That's not the scope of this video. It's just to show you how you can build out a dashboard like this to automatically schedule all the interviews and get through the process in the most streamlined way possible. So that is what we're gonna be building today, guys. We're gonna be using 4 pieces of software to do so. The first one is Indeed. So that's where we're gonna be getting our applicants from. Indeed has websites in pretty much every single country in the world. So whether you're hiring in the US, in Canada, in Mexico, the Philippines, wherever you're hiring, you will be able to post jobs on Indeed. And then we're gonna be using make.com to connect all of the different applications together. Make.com, if you haven't heard of it yet, I do have tons of videos on it. You can go ahead and check those out if you're interested, but Make.com essentially is like the glue of the internet. It binds different applications together. So for example, when somebody applies on Indeed, right? You can have a row on that spreadsheet where you create a new row for that person. You can send them an email, right? And it connects those applications together. The third application we're going to be using is Go High Level, which is a CRM, right? And we're using it primarily for the automation, so automated emails, automated text messages, the form creation so that we can do that initial screening just to make sure that the right candidates for us. And the last thing we're going to be using, number 4, is Google Sheets to store all that information in a nice display so that we can move very quickly through all the applicants. Okay, so that's what we're gonna be building today. So let's dive right into it. Okay, so in Indeed, we're gonna have to create a new job post. If you guys don't have an Indeed account, you'll just have to go ahead and sign up. It's very simple to do. Once you sign up as an employer for Indeed, you can log in and you can see all the jobs listed here. Now, it's pretty self-explanatory. I'm not gonna go into too many details on how to post a job on Indeed, but I will just point out a couple of things that we absolutely need that are requirements. The first one is the job title. So we just need to make sure we always save the job title. So for example, you could be like, hey, sales representative, and we'll get into why we need this at a later point in time, but just make sure that the job title is clear and concise, and this is a unique field, right? So we wanna make sure that whatever we have here, we just wanna make sure that we have something where there's not 2 identical jobs with the same title that have different positions. It's okay to have 2 different jobs, one as a sales rep in Canada, one as a sales rep in the United States, as long as you're feeding them into the same kind of system, right? It's the same position, but we just wanna try and have this as a unique identifier. And the reason why is because we're going to essentially pull this from an email later on and use that to automatically send future emails to candidates. So if that makes absolutely no sense, I don't blame you, but we'll go over it later on so it makes a lot more sense. You can go ahead and add any fields that you want here. I'm just gonna go ahead and say for the time being that this is fully remote, and we'll go ahead and hire 1 person. We can continue on, and once again, you can select whatever it is that you want here. And once you're done, you can click continue. Once again, all of this kind of stuff is up to your discretion. It doesn't matter how you enter in any of these details. The main thing that we're looking for here when this loads is not even the job description, But here, send daily updates to. So you wanna make sure that you're sending daily updates to a particular email, and you wanna make sure this is checked off. So plus, send individual email updates every single time somebody applies, right? This is really important because we wanna be notified every single time we get a job applicant so that we can now go ahead and start this automation. The automation will start with Indeed notifying us that we have received a new job applicant. And for me personally, what I like to do is just send this to an email that I don't really use too often, just because these can be quite overwhelming, or I just make sure to assign this to a virtual assistant or a team member that can take care of it for you. Because once again, if you are getting like 400 different applicants in 2 days, that's obviously super distracting, and it's really hard to get things done when you're getting notifications literally every 2 minutes. Okay, cool. So main thing here is we just want to make sure this is checked off and we're sending emails to the right email address. And the last thing here that we need to put is we just need to make sure that we're sending automated messages to these candidates as soon as they inquire. So that's pretty much it. The job title and daily or reminders to our particular email every time somebody applies to that job. The questions you can go ahead and ask. This is all up to your discretion. And let's see here. Yeah, and then you can go ahead and either sponsor it. They might have something down here being like, hey, you can post this for free. However, for automated messages to work, we're gonna head over to the tools. I'm not actually gonna publish that job, but that was just a test example to walk you guys through. But if we go into the automation section here, these automations only work for sponsored posts. So if you push a post live for free, you're not gonna be able to use this tool. Just as a heads up, it's not mandatory. It's just a nice to have for the system to work faster. Essentially, what you would likely want to do is you'd want to have in this automation library, you want to have a message where you message candidates immediately once they apply to join your position, right? So the faster you get in contact with somebody, the more likely they are to move forward with the process, right? And for me, what I want to know is I just want to have as wide of a net as possible. And ideally, I want to have hundreds or thousands of people applying, right? The probability of me finding a superstar in like 5 applicants is very low. But if I have 1,000 applicants that I'm going or screening past, the chance of me hiring a superstar is very high, right? So for me, and this is just my personal taste, it's not necessarily, I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, but what I like to do is just have as many applicants as possible so that I can pick and choose the people that I really want to work with from the widest pool available. So we'll go ahead and set up an automation so that when people apply for particular positions, so let's just go ahead and select a sales position here, and you'll have to do it for every single position. I already have this on, but we're just sending a message saying, hey, candidate first name, and this will just pull in the first name of the candidate here. These are custom variables. And then we can just say, you know, thanks for applying to our position sales representative. We can delete this. And then we'll go ahead and say, there's just one more step we need. Can you please fill out our short form to complete your application? And then this is where you can pull in this form here, right? And you can enter it here. Now we haven't gone ahead and built this yet, but we will build this. And when we do build this form, you'll want to put that link here so that the second somebody applies, they automatically get a message from Indeed straight into this link here. And when they get that message, they'll go here and finish the rest of their application process. For me personally, I don't really like asking the questions on Indeed. I want to ask my own personal questions. And based on the answers they give me, then I'll determine whether they're the right candidate or not. So I just like to send them off to my website to complete the application process. We can go ahead and turn that on. And at this point in time, we have the job posting completed, and we also have automated messages, sending to applicants as soon as they've inquired. Now I'm just gonna be jumping back and forth. Sorry, I should have shown this a bit earlier. As to the mind map, there is a lot of steps here. So so we're gonna start with, we've already started with Indeed, and then we have built out the automated responses, right? So as soon as somebody applies on Indeed, we automatically send them responses. Now, like I mentioned earlier, Indeed will also send you an email for every single person that applies to your particular position, right? And we need to grab that email, and we need to essentially find the Indeed email that it's being sent from, right? Because that email will be sent to you from that candidate, and you can actually reply to that email. And when you reply to that email, it's going to send them a message again, and you can constantly be sending them multiple messages over and over again. And this is how we can automatically follow up with these people without even having to log into the Indeed dashboard, without even having to look at the applicant. It's just going to do this on autopilot, which is going to save us so much time, right? Because realistically, if you had to email, let's say 458 people and send them text messages or WhatsApp messages, it could take a long time, right? It could take a very, very long time. This is almost a full-time job, right? But this can be done in actually, 0 seconds if you do it properly, which is what we're going to be doing today. Okay, awesome. So that's the next step we're going to do. And then once we get this information, we want to effectively create a spreadsheet here where we list all of the applicants in our spreadsheet. Once we have that spreadsheet, we'll go ahead and send some follow-up reminders. Okay, awesome. So that sounds good. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go ahead and build out the sheet, right? And I'm just gonna go ahead and build out a carbon copy of the sheet here. I'm gonna copy these first 2 rows just because I wanna have an example right away of one test client so that I can use this test client over and over and over again. I'm just gonna push this out so it looks a bit pretty here. I'm gonna align it in the middle. Okay, so here we go. We have our sheet, and with these fields, you don't have to use the same ones that I'm using. I just like to have the name of the person. I wanna know the particular role that they're inquiring for, right? So it could be sales, it could be an event coordinator, it could be a marketer, it could be a photo or video editor. I wanna know the country, right? I don't always hire in Canada. Sometimes I like to hire in the Philippines or Mexico, or Brazil or Colombia. You can hire in the United States, whatever country that you want, but I just like to hire in different countries as well. And then here's the major portion of the automation. You're gonna be able to see the progress, right? And every single milestone in this life cycle of onboarding or hiring people is going to be listed here. So if they're rejected, you'll see it in column D. The questions, right, when they answer those initial screening questions, which will be right here. Once they've gone ahead and done that, they will have this checked off. And then if you approve those questions, you can go ahead and click approved on the screening. And then once they've scheduled the interview, they'll have the checkbox here. Once they've gone ahead and done the first interview, that will be checked off. And then, let's say that Alex goes ahead and interviews them, but he doesn't like the person, you can just go ahead and reject them instead of checking this box off, just to make sure that we know where that person lies. And then we'll just, send over an automated message telling them that unfortunately it didn't work out between us. If Alex likes them, then we'll go ahead and send a message to them, and they can book another interview. Once they book that interview, this will be checked off. And then if I go ahead and check this box off, then they're hired, and we'll send over a contract. You can take a look and see ratings. So I like to, assign ratings to particular people just to keep it, nice and organized. We have 2 email fields here. It is a bit redundant, but the reason why we have 2 email fields here is because the initial email that they're going to apply with is going to be an Indeed email field. So if we come and take a look at this, let's just see. So you can see it's at Indeed email.com and there's just a random email. So we want to move them off that Indeed email as fast as possible and get their actual email so that we can actually get in contact with them a lot easier. But we're going to start with Indeed email because that's the only email that we get access to automatically without having to find it in the Indeed profile, which is going to take a long time. So we'll start with this, and then once we get that in real email, and how we get that is through asking them right here. Once we have that initial screening process, we'll go ahead and update these fields. We'll collect the phone number of the user, and then what I like to do is I always like to have voice recordings of the particular person. So what that looks like is if I'm hiring overseas, I just want to make sure that I can actually listen to their voice, and I want to make sure that I'm screening for how well their English is. If their English is good, then of course, you know, that's somebody I'd be more inclined to work with. And if I can't understand what they're saying, then it's going to be unlikely that we'll work together. And essentially, how many years of experience do they have, right? So I want to know that if I'm hiring somebody in the sales position, they have a decent amount of experience. I don't want to be the guinea pig where they're testing out whether they want to go down a sales path with me or not, because that's going to often result in a lot of people quitting right away because they realize sales is not for them. And I just don't want to go through the training for months and months and months to find out that somebody wants to leave right away. Any notes you want to leave about that person, go ahead and do so here. A resume, they can upload their resume, a link to their portfolio. I like to have portfolios for like photo editors or video editors and that kind of stuff. So, you know, I really, most of the hire is dependent in certain positions based on their work, right? So that's got to be strong. Expected salary, I always love asking this question because you get to, it paints a really good picture as to how much they're looking for, especially if you're hiring a position you've never hired for before and you're not too sure what to pay people. You're going to get a pretty good indicator when you get approximately, you know, 400 or 500 people saying this is what it is that I expect, and just basing on the averages there, you can get a pretty good understanding of what to pay people. If you're hiring outside of your, or honestly anywhere, I personally, I don't like hiring people that haven't lived in that particular country for more than 3 years, because a lot of the times, if they haven't lived there for 3 years, chances are they're just gonna move somewhere else. And you know, I just really don't wanna hire people that are gonna leave immediately. And a lot of those hiring decisions could have been avoided if you just asked the right questions in the first place. I like to ask, or just add on, when that applicant was received, what the source was, the ID of the person, which will be generated through Go High Level, the CRM. And then in this case, you know, you can ask any additional questions that you want to know about that person. So these are not set. You can ask whatever questions you want here. Really, whatever you list here should just help you understand whether that candidate is the right fit for your role or not, right? So all of these things can be changed. You certainly don't have to follow what I'm doing here. This just kind of works best for me and my company and you know, the people I'm trying to hire. Okay, awesome. So we've gone ahead and we have created we've created the Google spreadsheet here. So the next thing we need to do is we need to pull applicants from Indeed, and we have to get them onto this spreadsheet, right? So how we're gonna go ahead and do that, and we'll just go back to our whimsical chart here, is we need to parse the emails that Indeed sent us. Okay, so if I take a look at what one of these emails looks like, I'm just gonna log into the account here. You'll see that essentially this is what an email looks like. So it'll say new application alert, this person applied for your sales representative position, right? And on the surface, it doesn't look like anything important, right? But the thing is this email right here, and I'm gonna zoom in here. If you get that email, I can now create another email and I can send it to this person, right? And this will actually land in their inbox. So if I go into Indeed and I go to candidates here, and I just decide I wanna message one of these people, right? So say I wanna message one of these people, I could go into Indeed and I could type out a nicely worded message, or I could go in here and I could immediately send that message, right? And if I send it to this address, it will appear in the dashboard of that Indeed person automatically. So really why we set up the job posting so that we have email messages every single time somebody applies is so we can find that particular email. I'm gonna go ahead and delete this, but we can find this email and we can pull this email from it. So then you're probably wondering, well, how the hell are we gonna get that email automatically, right? And it's actually a lot simpler than you probably think. And this is where the application make.com comes in. It's one of the most powerful automation tools. Well, definitely one of the most powerful automation tools I've ever used, but one of the best tools just in general that I've ever used, and it's honestly game changing. This tutorial here is not going to be covering exactly how you can get started with make.com, but I will be making a tutorial on that, and when I do, I'll link it in the description down below. But essentially in make.com, we're gonna create a scenario here, right? And in this scenario, essentially, and keep in mind guys, make.com, you're just creating, make.com is glue that binds the internet together. It just helps connect different applications together. So Google Sheets, you can connect into your Gmail account. You can connect Go High Level into your Google Sheets or Gmail account, and you can have different actions being performed in Google Sheets. So for example, what we're actually gonna be doing is adding a row here, right? So every row here is automatically added by make.com. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a trigger. Now a trigger just starts a series of actions, right? So when something happens, we want to do subsequent things, right? So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna have a Gmail, right? And the trigger is gonna be watch for emails. So we need to go ahead and find that particular email account, right? And that email account is just where we're receiving all of these emails from. And once we've gone ahead and done that, then we just need to have a criteria here, or sorry, filter type, Gmail filter, not a simple filter. And we just want to filter based on Indeed. So what this means is that if I go into this account, when it's finding emails for me, it's just gonna type this filter, right? And these are the results that are going to appear. It's only gonna find emails related to Indeed.com. Okay, perfect. So we'll go ahead and do that, and maximum number of results, you can just select one. This is essentially saying like, hey, every single time it searches for results, do you want it to search for one result? So for example, do you want it to search for just one, or do you want it to search for two, or three at a time, or four at a time? In this case, I'm just gonna leave it at one, and we'll go ahead and click OK. Oh, we need the folder, so I'm just gonna go ahead and choose general folder or inbox here. Okay, and for this demo purpose, I'm gonna select the first email just so we can get a record in here immediately. And let's see, this one looks good. Okay, sweet, so I'm gonna click OK, and I'm gonna run once. Okay, this cloud thing denotes that we have a response, and you can see the information pulled in. This information that's being pulled in is everything that you would possibly be able to see in this email, but it's actually showing you more than what just meets the eye, because you can see all the little, all this HTML, all the CSS, everything that you initially actually wouldn't see in the email can be captured here. Specifically, what we want to capture is the from section. So you can see the content of the email here, which is really nice, right? And we'll just go ahead and choose recipient. And okay, so that's the email that we sent it from, and the sender is Abraham, this person right here, right? So the cool thing is if I went back and I emailed Abraham, and let's just see here, this is this person right here. So if I went, we can actually Command F and see that the same email here, and I didn't copy the whole email properly, but you know, it would copy to the end. We can go ahead and pull that out using make.com immediately, right? Which is cool. So we have the email, and what we're also gonna want is the name as well. So you can see in the sender, there's the name too, right? So we can go ahead and we're gonna create another action. So now that we have the trigger, what do we want? Well, let's start with the name. So we're gonna go into tools and we're going to set a variable here. And this will be employee name. And then the value will be, we're gonna use a split function here. Split essentially allows you to split text however you want. So in this instance, what we want to do is we want to split it by an empty, or let me see, a space here. So anytime, so for example, if I say Jono Catlif, right? A split is going to separate Jono and separate Catlif, and it's going to do that using the space here, right? So what we're gonna do is we're going to go ahead and we're gonna map his name from this email into the value here. So we can do sender name, okay? This isn't gonna work perfectly because it's actually, this guy has included 2 middle names in here. So there's no perfect way to do this, but this is good enough for me. It's gonna just essentially return Abraham is his first name and Sebastian is his last name. And usually most people just have a first and last name. This is just a bit unusual, and you can find solutions to, like, you know, having people with 3 or 4 names, but just the amount of time required to solve that is just disproportionate to the amount of time, or the amount of occurrences that'll happen. Like, this is not a common thing, and it's gonna take me a long time to solve that. So I'd rather just kind of keep it as something where it works approximately 95% of the time. Okay, so that's essentially it. And then what we can do is we can go ahead and we're gonna add something called an HTTP module, and we're gonna make we're gonna make a request here. And what we're doing here is we're getting this contact from the CRM, or sorry, from Google or Gmail into the CRM. So remember, we're using 4 software platforms here. We're gonna use Indeed, Make.com, we're gonna use Google Sheets, and we're also gonna use Go High Level. Now we're officially bringing in Go High Level so that we can enter this information from that email that we received from Indeed into Go High Level, right? So what we're gonna need to do, and you don't have to use Go High Level, right? This is just what I like to use because it's just, you know, it's my preferred software platform when it comes to CRMs. But we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna create a new workflow. And you know what? I'm actually gonna go back here and I'm gonna create a new folder just for this one project, employee test. Okay, so we got our employee test folder here, and we'll create a workflow from scratch. Okay, sweet. Employee application test. Okay, now we want to get information from Make.com into Go High Level. So how we're going to do that is we're going to add a trigger here. Right, once again, a trigger just starts a workflow, right? So when it starts, certain actions will happen. And the trigger that we're going to use is something called an inbound webhook, right? And this is the URL that we can send information to. So coming back here, we want to enter in a URL. So essentially, let's just back up here for a second. When the email is received, we're going to essentially find the first and the last name of the employee, and then we're going to send that information into Go High Level, and we're going to send it to this API endpoint right here, which will be received here. So what do we want to send? We're going to change the body type into application xwww-form-URL encoded, and we're going to make sure the method is set to post. The difference between these methods is that post essentially is sending information somewhere, a get method is receiving information from somewhere, a put method right here is updating information that already exists somewhere, and a delete method is deleting information that exists somewhere. So we're sending information somewhere, so we're going to use post, and we'll add in form fields here. So there's 3 things that we want. We want the email, we want the first name, we want the last name, and we also want the position as well. So actually 4 things, I lied. Sorry about that. Cool. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're going to have the email be the sender email right here, right? So we're gonna map that email address, which is effectively this right here. We're gonna pull that in and send that as the email here. And then the first name and the last name are going to be from that second module here, the tools. And then the last thing that we need to do is we need to have a particular position. I'm just gonna zoom in here just so you guys can see this a bit better. And for this position, you can just go ahead and put sales or whatever, but you'll notice how I have approximately 5 different positions that I'm hiring for, right? And just to make it simple, I'm gonna put all of these positions in, I'm just gonna allow one spreadsheet where we have all of the different positions. How we can go ahead and do that is we're gonna select the option here, and then we're gonna have an if statement. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna say if subject, so if the subject, right? And if that subject equals sales, or sorry, this is not right. We're gonna go back and say if it contains sales. So maybe it's a bit easier if I just pull this out here and I do it below. So we'll have contains, and what's going on here is we put in the subject here and it contains the word sales, right? So if in this subject, it contains the word sales, right? It's gonna go down path A or path B. So it'll go down path A if it contains sales in the subject line. If it doesn't contain sales, then it'll go down path B. So in path A, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna call this sales. That's gonna be the position, sales. And then if it doesn't contain that, then it's gonna go down path B. Well, what's path B? We need to essentially duplicate this and put this in here. Okay, so it gets progressively more and more confusing, but effectively, this is inside, right? This if statement. So now it's saying, if the subject is sales, then mark the position as sales. And if the subject is coordinator, then mark it as coordinator. And I'm just gonna combine this together because it makes it easier. All you have to do is just go to the last colon and bracket, and then we can do this again. And we can say, if the position is photo editor, then keep it as photo editor, and so on and so forth. And this really brings us back to when we were setting up that job, right? And this is why it's really important when we set up the job. I'm just gonna go back in here and I'm just going to edit this, continue with draft. This is why it's so important to have a particular name on the field or the job title here, right? So in this job title, it has the word sales, right? If I was hiring a photo editor, then it would have the job title photo editor here, right? So we just need to make sure that whatever you have here, we're pulling it out. And the reason why is because it's going to say in the subject line, they applied to the sales representative position. We're pretty limited in the information this email gives us. So we have to work essentially with what we have. And there's a couple pieces of information they give us. They give us the client's first, or the employee's first and last name. They give us that person's email, and they also give us the position that they hired for, right? So we're gonna pull out that position from the subject line here. So if that subject line contains sales, then we're gonna mark it as sales. If it contains coordinator, we're gonna mark it as coordinator. If it contains photo editor, then we're gonna mark it as photo editor, so on and so forth. And we can click save. Okay, perfect. And the only other thing is we need to add in that person's name, first name and last name, and we need to get that from this tool. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we just need to run this scenario once to get the information to come through so that we can use that and put it into the variables. If that made absolutely no sense, it's okay. All we have to do is just run the scenario once, and we can see here that it's been executed. And if we go here, it's gonna say it's gonna break everything down by the space, right? So it's actually given us 4 results here. And we can go ahead and in the first name, we'll go ahead and select 1 here, which will denote the first. And then we'll go ahead and select 2 here, which denote the second. So what that means is that if I put a 1, it'll bring me Abraham. If I put a 2, it's gonna give me Sebastian, right? So let's go ahead and try this again. We're gonna choose where to start. We're gonna select the first email ourselves. We're gonna select Abraham here. We're gonna click OK. We're gonna run once. Okay, so now it's ran. And if we come back to this workflow and go high level and we fetch examples, you can see that it's loaded in this person. We can see the email. All right, so if we come back into go high level here, we're gonna see all that information appearing in the inbound webhook here, right? This is a JSON format. It might look a bit scary if you've never seen it before, but it's not that difficult to use. We'll go ahead and save the trigger and I'll show you what this kind of looks like. You don't have to use information in JSON and go high level, but we're gonna select the email of the client and we're going to connect it into this inbound webhook trigger, which is right here, right? What we built this trigger on. We're gonna select the email here, right? So essentially what's going on here is we got information from Indeed, right, via that email that they sent us, and we passed it into go high level here, and we received it, right? And we're just essentially trying to connect that client that we just found into go high level. And if the client exists, we'll update that client. If they don't exist, then we'll go ahead and create a new client, right? So it's we're either creating or updating a new client. And how we compare that client with somebody who exists or create somebody new is through the email, which we passed in, which is this Indeed email. So if we go ahead and take a look, this is the email that we're passing in for that new client. In this case, the client or the person doesn't exist in go high level, right? This is the first time they're entering. So in that instance, we're gonna go ahead and create a contact with an email that we passed in. And we'll go ahead and change, we'll add the first name as well here. And we'll do the same thing, inbound webhook equals first name and last name as well equals inbound webhook last name. Okay, perfect. So they're gonna be created and go high level. You can go ahead and save that. The first thing I always like to do is just assign to a user. So I'll go ahead and I'll assign it to myself. And we'll also make sure that this is unchecked because every contact that comes in here I want to assign to myself. And all we have to do is essentially send an email to that person. So this is ultimately, you know, you guys can say whatever you want, but we can go ahead and select user full name and then user email. This is how we're going to be sending to the client. And then the subject can be congratulations. Actually it might be thanks for applying to your company name, right? I'm just going to go ahead and say djang.ca. And I'll say just a few more steps, something along the lines of that. And we can create a message, the body message of the email. So what I like to do is just, of course, greet them by their first name. Thanks for applying to our position. We can go ahead and add their first name here, right? By selecting a custom variable, which is first name. And then we also probably want to let them know which position they applied for. So we can go in and use the inbound webhook trigger here and select the position, which we actually don't see here, right? Which means that no position was passed. So we actually made a mistake when setting this up. So if we go back here, we'll just fix this quickly. So the position is empty, which means that we didn't do this properly. Okay, so if subject contains sales equals sales, if subject contains coordinator, coordinator, if subject contains photo editor, photo editor. And we'll just take a look and see what the subject line contains here. Okay, and the reason why is because this is capitalized here. So we just need to go back and make sure that's capitalized because it's going to be case sensitive. We can go ahead, choose where to start, select the first email again, and we'll go ahead and run this. And coming in here, we'll see the most current result, and it should work now. Okay, perfect. The sales position is in here. Just always be careful when it comes to capitalization and spelling and all that kind of stuff, because this is just a really easy way to make mistakes, and it's also difficult to debug if you're just setting workflows up like this for the first time. So in the email we're going to send over, I just like prefacing it with the particular position that they inquired for. So we can go ahead to the inbound webhook triggers here and use the position. So it'll say, thanks for applying to our sales position. We just need you to fill out a quick form. Here's the link, and then we need to paste the link here, right? So essentially we need to be able to go ahead and create this form here for that user. And how we can do that is in Go High Level, right? So I've already built the form here, but I'll go ahead and just build it up again. So we'll back out of this workflow, and we're going to go into Sites here, and then Forms and Builder. And we'll go ahead and add a form and start from scratch. Okay, and I'm just going to title this Employee Form Test. Okay, I'm not actually going to style this form, guys. I'm just going to go ahead and quickly make it just so you guys can take a look and see how this works. So the first thing is we want the email up at the top here, and it's going to be a unrequired field. It's actually going to be hidden later on, and I'll show you why that is the case. And we need to go ahead and create a secondary email field. So I already have this created. I'm just going to go ahead and use, let's see here, main contact email, and I'll actually label this as email. So there's two email fields here, right? And if we just go ahead and quickly preview this, it seems very counterintuitive why you'd have two email fields here. But the reason why is actually because when people inquire, they're inquiring with their Indeed email, right? And this is not the email that we want to keep on file, but this is the main email that they came into the system with. So we need to update this with their actual email here, right? So essentially what's going to happen is that when we send people to this form, this first email is going to be hidden here, right? And we're going to use something called query parameters to automatically fill this in. So query parameters are in the URL. So if I type in email equals this, it's going to automatically populate this first field here, right? So this is the original email field, and this is what we're going to update that email field to at a later point in time. And we can use email or query parameters, which is a key value pair. So the key is email and the value is this. And that's going to automatically load this in. And you can do this with all the fields and Go High Level. You can see the query key here is main contact email. This query key is email. That's why if we typed in email here, it's going to fill in this email. If we typed in last name here, right, and we just copied this over and we did and equals test, then their last name is going to be filled in as well. And you can do this with all the fields. We just want to make sure that we do this with the email field. And the reason why we do this is because when we're using forms in Go High Level, it will link that form to a user based on the email or the phone number, right? Those are two unique identifying fields that will connect that person submitting the form to the contact you actually have in the CRM. And you want to make sure this form field is hidden, the original email, because what could happen is if they land on this page, right, and they're like, you know what, this actually isn't my email, I'm going to go update it to my regular email. Well, then let's say they changed it to, you know, this, right? And when they submit that, Well, test@gmail.com is actually different. Well, it's different. It's a different email, right? So it's going to create a new contact instead of updating the existing contact. So we don't want to give them the opportunity to create a new contact. We want to make sure that they only update their existing profile. And the best way to do that is just make sure that they don't have the opportunity to change the data. So what we do here is we pass in the URL parameters, their existing Indeed email, right? So when they are inquiring here, let's just go ahead and pull this in. It's going to list their original Indeed email here, but they're not going to have access to changing that. So what we'll do is we'll select this as hidden and save this so that when they come in, that field here will be hidden. They cannot update this email, and they'll go ahead and they'll write in their actual email here. And what we're going to do is when they update this email, we're going to update the email on file with them with the new email that they're now putting in here. So that's kind of how I like to build out these forms. And we'll go ahead and add another field here. And these are, we're going to have a position field here. Now, if you guys don't already have this, I already have this in my account, but you can just go ahead and choose like a single drop down here and click next, and then be like, I want a sales position and I want a coordinator position, and so on and so forth, and click save. But I already have that field here. And I'm gonna make sure that all these fields are required, including the first and the last name as well. Okay, cool. So that's essentially it. And then I'll just add in a couple more questions just so you guys can see kind of how I like to tackle this. But I definitely want a resume. So I want people to upload the resume. And I also like to have a voice recording question so that they can upload a voice recording note of them speaking about their experience in the particular position that they have, specifically for things like sales, right? And also for event coordinator positions, but not necessarily for things like photo editors. I don't care how well they speak English. But yeah, so I'll have these fields in there. I'll set them both to required. And let's say, you know, for example, I have two positions. One doesn't require the voice recorder. Then what we can do is we can hit this add conditional logic up here and show and hide fields. And if the position that somebody chooses is equal to photo editor, or the position that somebody chooses is equal to video editor, then we're gonna go ahead and we'll actually hide that voice recorder, right? So if we preview this again, and we just go ahead and we select, for example, position, photo editor, now it's gonna be hidden. And they can no longer, they no longer have access to actually update that voice recorder, which is great because you can go ahead and add as many custom questions as you want on this form. And depending on the position that they apply for, it's gonna show them those exact questions, which is really nice because obviously, you know, when it's just nice to have one form that has everything. I don't like having 5 or 6 or 10 forms. I like having one form that I can go to, and that form is, you know, good for all the applicants. Just like I have one sheet for all of the candidates that join my company. I don't have to go between 7 or 10 or 15 different Google Sheets. I also don't have to go between 7 or 10 or 15 different forms. It's all in one. Makes it super concise, super nice. Okay. Perfect. So now we have the link to this form here, right? And we can go ahead back into that automation that we created, and we can add that link here, right? So when we say, oh, it looks like this didn't save. So we'll just go ahead and select position. Thanks for applying to our position. Can you please finish your application by filling out our form below? And then we can put that link to this form so that when they go to the link, they're landing on this page, right? A couple things, this needs to be required field up here, and we'll go ahead and save that. And the last thing is we need to have those URL parameters so that the original email field has a particular value in it. So we'll go ahead and click or write in, and I'll put this on a different line for now, email equals, and then contact or inbound webhook trigger email, right? So now we're gonna send them a link that looks like this. When that email is actually sent out, it'll include their Indeed email.com. So it'll be like whatever at Indeed.email.com, and this will attribute to the person. And then they can go ahead and update their email, and this is going to overwrite their initial Indeed email with their original email here. And that's how we can get this to work perfectly. And then we can just go best and then sign off with the user name. Okay, awesome. So there we go. We've got the first part done. You guys can go ahead and if you want, what I like to do with mine is I like to have a day and then maybe repeat, send this email again, right? And then change this up just slightly, just so it doesn't seem like completely automated. And then I'll go ahead and I'll do that again here. And you can do this as many times as you want. The more times you send it, obviously, the more likely somebody is to find that email, open it up, complete the form, and submit the information that you want. So that's always nice. And then you can also send them text messages as well. This is really great, but the problem is if you are trying to hire people in different countries, it's difficult to send text messages because every single country that you're sending text messages to is going to have different regulations, right? So you have to, for a lot of different countries, you have to actually reside or have an office or whatever and be incorporated in that particular country to send a text message. So what you can do instead is you can actually send WhatsApp messages, and you can get WhatsApp straight through Go High Level, and you can send messages through WhatsApp. So in the builder here, what we can do is instead of sending text messages, we can go ahead and send WhatsApp messages. And you need to program certain templates to use. And then you can go off and send those templates, right? So setting up WhatsApp is a whole nother video in and of itself, so I'm not going to go too far into this. But if you guys are interested in how to set this up, I can go ahead and create another video for you guys. Just let me know in the comments below if you're interested in learning more about that. Now, the one other thing that I'll say about WhatsApp is I would only set it up, right, if there's actually a number dedicated to that client, right? So if the phone in that client is not empty, then I can send this WhatsApp message. But if they don't have a phone number, then I wouldn't go ahead and send that phone number. So that's kind of how I would set this up, right? So it just depends if they have phone numbers, if they don't have phone numbers. And the only other thing I would do is I'd put a drip on here. So what a drip means is you can only send the next stages in the automation, i.e. the WhatsApp messages. For example, you can only send one every 6 minutes. I don't like screwing around with Facebook just because they tend to ban people super easily. So the last thing I'd want to do is get in a situation where I have like 1,000 clients or 1,000 people apply for a job and in the span of like a couple hours, and then all of a sudden we're spending thousands of WhatsApp messages and potentially getting banned. I just don't like playing with fire just because they are trigger happy when it comes to banning people. So what I would do in this case scenario is just make sure that we can only send out one WhatsApp message in this workflow to any client at all every 6 minutes, and that's it, right? That's the max we're gonna send, just to play on the side of caution here. I wouldn't do this with text messages, just with WhatsApp messages, and I'd only use WhatsApp messages if you're trying to hire people outside of the country you live in. And it's difficult to send text messages due to the regulations in those countries prohibiting you from being able to send text messages in those countries. Okay, cool. So that's essentially the first part. So we've sent a link and they can fill out our application here, right? And you guys can add in as many questions as you want. For example, you know, if I just kind of go back to mine, what I like to ask is position, phone number, the city that you live in, the country you live in, how many years have you lived in that country, how much experience do you have in the particular role that you're applying for, what's your expected salary. You can upload your resume, your voice recording of yourself speaking, all of that kind of stuff. Now, what's gonna happen is we're gonna send this email to people, right? And they're gonna fill this out. So I'll quickly go ahead and fill this out, and we'll set up the next stage of the automation. I will just say that I'm applying for the sales position, and let's go ahead and upload these two files here. Okay, perfect. Now we'll click, okay, it's gotta be a valid phone number. Okay, sweet. So I've gone ahead and I've submitted this, right? So let's just pretend like you're a client that's submitting this form. And I'm not gonna go into how to set this up so it looks really nice or styling it or anything like that. This is just to strictly walk you guys through the process. Let's go back to our whimsical chart here. So we've got somebody applying from Indeed. We send an automated response to them. We will go through the email and we'll parse out, we'll get their email and their first name and their last name and the position they're applying to, and then we'll enter them into Go High Level, right? And we'll send follow-up reminders to get them to fill out the screening questions. And now we're at this part, right? So we need to just make sure that they're in the Google Sheet at this point in time. So if we go back into Go High Level, we're gonna need to create another workflow. And there's gonna be a lot of workflows here, guys, to handle all of the different exchanges of information at every single point in time. So we'll go back into the employee test field where we have one current workflow, and we're gonna create another workflow, and we're gonna start from scratch. Okay. And we'll title this employee screening. And this is gonna be when they submit this form, right? So when this form is submitted, we need to take a particular action. So what we can do here is we can add a new trigger, and it's gonna be form submitted. And that particular form is going to be whatever that form was called. So form is, we'll do test, sweet. So employee form test. So when they submit that form, this is gonna create the next trigger, which will have multiple actions after they submit the form. Okay, sweet. So the first thing that we're gonna wanna do here is we're gonna wanna remove them from a workflow. And what workflow we wanna remove them from is the employee application workflow. And the reason why we wanna do this is because, let's say that we send an email, right? So they just applied on Indeed, right? And the first thing we send is an email to that particular user, and we say, hey, thanks for applying to our company, just a few more steps, can you please fill out this form? And then they go ahead and they fill out that form, right? You probably don't wanna wait a day, right? And then send another email saying, hey, thanks for applying, can you fill out that form again, right? Because they've already filled out the form. You don't wanna keep sending them old text messages or emails from a past step. So what we wanna do is we wanna cancel that past step so that they don't receive more emails or text messages or WhatsApp messages prompting them to fill out the form that they just submitted. So we'll go ahead and we'll remove them from that last step. Awesome. And then what we're gonna do is we're going to want to send information from this form submission. So when they fill out this form submission, we wanna enter them onto this, this test Google Sheet here, test employee hire. Okay, perfect. So how do we get them to have an additional row on this sheet here? What we're gonna need to do is we're gonna need to use make.com again to send information similarly to how we did it here into make.com so that we can update this Google Sheet here with a new hire. So we're gonna choose webhook, and what a webhook does is it essentially sends information from Go High Level to another platform, and you can send it to thousands and thousands and thousands of platforms, but in this instance, we're sending it from Go High Level into make.com. Okay, so we'll send a post URL, and how we're gonna do this is we're gonna go back into the scenarios section here, and we're gonna create another scenario here called employee screening test, okay? And we're gonna choose webhook, right? So we're sending the webhook in Go High Level to a webhook module in make.com. And it's gonna be a custom webhook, right? And we can go ahead and just say employee screening test. You can name it whatever you want here. The name ultimately does not matter. We'll go ahead and save that, and we can copy this address, which is right here, and we'll go ahead and throw it in there, right? So when the user submits this form, it's going to send information to that webhook. So let's actually go ahead and give it a shot. We'll click OK here and click run once. So now the the workflow is just waiting for a response. So it's waiting for information to be sent from this workflow. And the way this workflow is triggered is by this form submission. So we'll go ahead and we're going to submit this workflow. So just in the case of this example, I'm just going to use the existing client I have, which is this email here. And we're going to refresh the page. And I'm just going to enter in the same email. This isn't how the client would do it. They'd have some random Indeed email here. And then we'll go ahead and enter in the rest of the positions. I'm going to say sales, and I'm just going to upload 2 files for the resume, 1 file for the voice recorder, and click submit. Okay, perfect. So this has been submitted. It's gone through this, right? This workflow, right? When the form was submitted, it removed from the last workflow and sent to this webhook here. And now we've received the data here. So you can see all of the information that we have on that particular client. And really what we want to do is get from here into updating this spreadsheet so that we add another row onto it. So how do we do that? Well, it's a couple steps. So the first thing we need to do is select the Google Sheets module, and we're going to go ahead and first of all, you can see there's just a million things to do here, but you want to make sure that we search for an existing row on that Google Sheet, right? So we'll go ahead and say search rows, and you just need to find the right sheet. So we need to integrate it into that existing sheet right away. So we're going to select from all, and we're going to find this spreadsheet ID, which you can see in the URL here. It's before the /edit and after the d/, and we'll copy and paste that into the spreadsheet here, and it should find it. I'm just going to make sure I'm on the right account. Okay, you just need to make sure the connection is for the right email account, and now it's been found. And we're going to select sheet number 1, which is essentially at the bottom here. I don't think you can see it because my face is actually in the way, but you can create multiple different sheets here, right? Sheet number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you just want to select the right sheet. Once we have that, then we can go ahead and find the right value here. So how we're going to do that is there's a lot of different information here, right? And we need something that's unique, and you can use the phone number and you also can use the email. But what I like to do is I like to use the ID of the client, right? Because this is never going to change, and where this ID is coming from is Go High Level. So that particular user has an ID. So first of all, we're just going to create an ID field here, and then it has to be equal to the the contact ID. And every single user in Go High Level has an ID that's automatically generated at all times. In this particular instance, it is it's this field here, contact_ID. If I go into that particular user and Go High Level, just to kind of show you guys, you'll be able to see it pretty fast here. Okay, just bear with me here for a second while I show you. But every contact automatically has an ID available. So if I go into my test account here, that ID can be found right here, right in the URL. It'll say detail / and then the ID, right? So that's essentially what we want to find here. And we're searching this sheet to see, is there an ID available that matches the ID of the client, right? So for this example, does this ID exist in the Google Sheet here? And if it does, then it'll find it. If it doesn't, then we want to create something new. So we can go ahead and click OK here, and we're going to add a step again where we have a flow control and we have a router, which has 2 options. And the first option is that ID doesn't exist. Okay, so we're going to select condition, the row number. It just cannot find a row number. So this client in this instance wouldn't exist. So for example, it'd be like there's no ID for that particular client. But in our case, this ID does exist, and it would go down the second path here, which would be exists. Okay, and that means here that the row number exists. So let's just break that down here. we're running down two hypothetical scenarios. We're gonna search for the user based on the ID in Google Sheets, and if this particular ID of the user exists, which in this case it does, then it would go down the exists path. But if that user didn't exist, which means there's no record of them, there's no Jono Catliffe in this spreadsheet or whatnot, then they're gonna go down the contact or the path doesn't exist. And the difference between the two is if it doesn't exist, well, we gotta go ahead and create that record. And if it does exist, then we're gonna have to go ahead and update that record. So in the doesn't exist path, we'll choose add a row. And we're gonna have to select the ID again and just make sure we choose the right account and select from all, enter in the spreadsheet ID here, and we'll select sheet 1, and we can go ahead and add in the information of this client. So we'll go ahead and select full name here, the role, which would be the position they applied for, which would be sales, the country. This isn't necessary if you're just hiring in the same country, but I just liked having it in my questionnaire because I hire from different countries. I didn't actually put it in the initial inquiry sheet here, but you can do that. That's definitely an option. And then rejected, we're not gonna do anything with. Questions, we'll say is true. And I'm gonna fill in the rest of the information, and then I'm gonna share with you guys what this looks like. Contact ID. We'll go ahead and add the contact ID here. Source, you can, for now I'm just gonna put Indeed. Date added is essentially today. So I wanna make sure that we format this correctly. So I'm gonna say, where is it? The time. So I'm gonna format this date. So I'm gonna click Formatter, and I'm gonna put now, which gives the exact time, but this isn't in a friendly format. Like it's just difficult to read, and I don't wanna read a date that's formatted the wrong way. So instead I'm just gonna do month, 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 day, day, and year, year, year. And it's just gonna say 3 letters for the month, 2 for the number, and then 4 for the year. And then, yeah, for all this other information here, we can go ahead and add it in if it's necessary. In this case, I'm actually just gonna delete the country here, and I'm going to also delete the years of experience, and I'll move the resume over here, and I'm gonna delete these questions here. You guys can add in any questions or delete any that you want. And there we go. So these are the questions that we're gonna keep, which means that we're gonna have to go back. And unfortunately, the problem with Google Sheets is that anytime you update the order of the columns, it's gonna change on you here. So we just need to enter the ID again here. And in this instance, we also need to refresh the values of the columns, the column headers. And you'll see that the country here no longer exists. And the screening is gonna be changed to questions here, which essentially, by the way, what this does is true here. It just means that when this comes in, right, this value is gonna be set to true. And if it's true, it's checked. If it's false, it's not checked. Okay, great. And then what else here? A couple of values were deleted. So we'll go back and add the contact ID. Okay, great. Source will be Indeed, once again. Date added, we're gonna go do that function one more time. So format date, we're gonna put the time as now, and then month, 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 day, day, year, year, year. And sweet. We wanna include the resume as well. The resume that they attached will be this link here. It's going to be it'll say resume, and this is like an array with where there can be multiple values. An array just means there can be multiple values in this particular type of data. So there's not to get too technical, but you just click the 1 down here, and then the voice recording. we're gonna select, once again, is the one down here, and phone number of the client. We're essentially just sending all the information that we have in the CRM already into Google Sheets so that it's gonna be listed there as well. So that it's almost like a carbon copy of all of the information that we currently have in the CRM. And then email, I'm gonna go ahead and select both, and then everything else is gonna be blank. Okay, so perfect. Now, we're gonna go ahead and do the same thing, but instead, we're going to update a row. And we'll choose update a row. So we'll create something if it doesn't exist, but if it does exist, then we have to update what is currently there. So once again, select from all, enter in the spreadsheet ID. The sheet name is gonna be, we're gonna unmap it here, and then we're gonna select sheet number 1, and then the row number we got from searching up in the last step, right? So this is why you have to search. There's an intermediary step where you search, is because otherwise we don't know, you know, like just take this example, there's hundreds and hundreds of people here. How do we know what to update? We have to find that particular row of the client before we update it, and how we find that person is by the ID that they have, right? So we found them based on the ID, and now we're gonna figure out which row to update here, and then we can go ahead and enter in the information once again. So full name, and obviously, I'm not gonna lie, this is a bit redundant going through this and putting the same information. Sometimes I just wanna, you know, stab my eye out with a fork rather than just go through this every single time. But with that being said, the cool thing about it is once you do set this up, you can set it and forget it and never have to deal with this kind of stuff ever again, which is nice, right? So it's an upfront cost of a couple hours, but once it's set up, it'll save you hours pretty much every single day. Date added, we're gonna leave blank because I don't wanna update the date added. I only want one date added when that client first came in to the CRM or to the Google Sheet. And then every time we update it after that, I never wanna update that date added field. It's just gonna be when they originally inquired. And then we can go ahead and select resume as well, and voice recorder. All right. And then phone. We'll go down here, and then email here. Okay. Sweet. We'll copy this over to the Indeed email, overwrite both, so we just have both of them there. And we're essentially good to go. We can save that. And now what we've done is we've gone to the point where when the Indeed application comes in, we send an automated response in Indeed. We find the email that Indeed sends us. We get the employee's first name, last name, email, position. Then we send them follow-up reminders in Go High Level. We get them to fill out a form. Once they fill out that form, it automatically updates the Google spreadsheet here, right? So if we were to go back and try this out now, it's called employee screening, and we'll just make sure that this is a test here, save it, and we'll actually go ahead and run this scenario here. So what we want to do is we want to run once, and now it's actively waiting for a response. We'll add this person to a workflow, and we'll paste it in here. We'll do the employee screening, and we're going to do the test, and we'll click add, right? So essentially I just went into the client, right? I went down to the automations tab and I added them into a workflow manually. And now you can see that that information was received. It went ahead and found that particular person in the sheet. So you can see here the output means that it's found. And because it was found, it already existed, right? We didn't have to create another spreadsheet row. We just existed what was already on file. And if we come in here, you know, we can see that everything has been updated. Now, let's go ahead and let's delete this And let's just try this one more time, right? Assuming that that person actually didn't exist in the CRM yet. So we'll try it again, and we'll do employee screening. We'll go do the test scenario. We'll add it to this module again. And instead, because it didn't currently exist because we just deleted it, now it had to create a new file because that file didn't exist, right? And you'll see all the formatting is a bit crazy here. That is just gonna happen the first time you do this after the header, because what happens is it will always copy the format of the row above, right? So whatever the row above that is, that's the format that is gonna copy and drag down to the row below. So we can go ahead and reset this format here. In fact, yeah, so we're just gonna go ahead and reset this. Okay, perfect. And go ahead and insert some checkboxes here. So we have that as well. And this was set to true. Perfect. Okay, so we've done all of that. Now what is gonna come next is we essentially want to make sure that this person actually passed the screening, right? We wanna make sure that based on the information that they've just submitted, do we actually like this person? Is this person somebody that we would wanna spend our time interviewing? If the answer is no, then we can go ahead and we can reject them. If the answer is yes, then we could go ahead and interview them, right? So at this point in time, what we're gonna do is, based on the information you collected, and it's going to be different for every single business, but in my instance, I'd go ahead and I'd listen to their voice recording, and I'd also listen to or read their resume, and I'd see, you know, is this person somebody that I want? And if they're no, then we can go ahead and we can click the reject box, right? But if I do want to interview them and I do want to send them to a first round, then we can go ahead and click screening here. And what we have to do is set up an automation so that when either one of these boxes are checked, we're going to send them back to go high level to send off an email saying, hey, you've been rejected, or hey, congratulations, we'd love to interview you. So how we do this is going back to make.com, and we're gonna exit out of this. We're gonna create another scenario here. So what we'll do is, in this new scenario, I'm just gonna name it first. So employee screening, actually updated Google Sheet employee test. Okay, so we need to make sure that when something happens in the sheet, we can send it to back into the CRM, right? Which is go high level. So how we do that is we select Google Sheets, and we want to select watch changes, right? So what this means is that anytime anything happens in your Google Sheet, it's going to notify this action here. So we'll go ahead and we'll click that, and we'll add a new webhook here, which will be employee. You can name it however you want, but I'm just gonna name it employee test and click save. And we can go ahead and copy this, this webhook here, right? And this is a bit tricky to do, and so it's also a bit finicky as well, but we'll go back into this sheet here, right? And we're gonna go to extensions, and we're gonna go to add-ons, and we're gonna select get add-ons. And we just wanna type in make.com at the top here. Actually, let's type in make. And we just wanna make sure that make is installed here, make for Google Sheets. So you just go ahead and install it. It's free to get started, all of that kind of stuff. And then once it's installed, you can go back into the extensions here, and you can click on make for Google Sheets and then go into the settings. And essentially what we want to do is we want to copy this this URL here. You can copy it here or down here, whatever works. And you paste it in one section and two sections, and you click save. Now, for the life of me, I don't understand why, but it doesn't actually save here for me. By the time you probably watch this video, it might be different. Okay, actually, you know what? It actually just saved. You can see it there. What a miracle. I wasn't getting it to work for whatever reason, but now it is finally. So what I was doing in the past is I was just opening up an incognito tab, and then I was just opening up that Google Sheet and just doing it from there. And for whatever reason, maybe it was me being cached, it was maybe a caching issue, or a plugin extension, like a Chrome extension, like one of these up here, like an ad blocker blocking it or something like that. I couldn't figure it out, but an incognito tab should work if you can't get it to work here. Okay, so now that this is installed, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and run this once. And anytime you click anything on this Google Sheet, this should start running. So let's go ahead and let's uncheck this box. And just wait a couple seconds. And now it has registered and recorded that action, right? We can see that the old value was true and now the new value is false. So this used to be true, now it's false. And we can see that it's the test employee hire spreadsheet that we just created, which is up here. And we can see all the values for that particular row of that particular client. So it goes on a row by row basis, which is super, super nice. And then, yeah, essentially what we want to do here is we want to have a flow control and a router here. And the reason why we want to have a router is because you can only have one of these webhooks in the sheet at any given time. And you're likely going to have multiple actions that you want to perform, but you can only have one scenario for this, right? So I guess you can have two or multiple, but I always like to keep it clean and just have one scenario that dictates all of the updates on that particular sheet, right? So what we'll do is we'll say, we'll label path number 1 as screening, right? So essentially, if this is checked, then do something, right? And on the second one, we'll call this rejected, which means that ideally what we want is if we approve the screening, then they're gonna go down this path and it's gonna take them to, you know, the next stages. If we click reject, then it's gonna send a rejection email to that particular candidate. So how we can do this is we need to have a filter set up. And in this filter, we're gonna make sure that the value equals true. And I always like setting it to case insensitive true, right? Because if for whatever reason it's lowercase, it's not gonna work, and that's gonna be a problem. And I wanna make sure that it's the right column. So this is column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the column start is equal to 5, okay? And then as long as the value is true, as long as this is true and it's set to 5, right? So anything along here will end up having the workflow go down this path. And anything that's set to column C or the third column will go down this path. So we'll go ahead and create this rejected section here. So once again, the value has to be equal case insensitive to true. And the column start, where is that? The column start has to be equal to 3. Okay, perfect. So we can go ahead and save that. And what we want to do is send this information back into Go High Level, right? Because when it's back in Go High Level, then we can start sending emails and text messages to these particular people, letting them know the next steps to take. So how we send it to Go High Level is an HTTP module. And by the way, like a lot of these, like Go High Level too, they'll have their own built-in thing here. I just found, and this was a long time ago, mind you, but I just found that this was incredibly unreliable. And a lot of the times that I tried to have workflow starting from this built-in integration, it just didn't work. So I ended up using the HTTP module, which has been incredibly reliable every single time I want to use it. So I've just gone ahead and created a request here. And let's go back and create another workflow. So you can see the workflows are slowly piling up, right? So we have 2 right now. We're going to create a third one. And this one is going to be called screening approved, and we're going to label it test. And same kind of deal as before, inbound webhook trigger. We're gonna copy this and I'm just gonna bring this over one, and we're gonna send the information to this URL. We're gonna choose post, and body type is application. I'm not even gonna try and pronounce that. It's like a freaking mouthful to say every single time. And all we have to do is select email, and we're just gonna go ahead and choose row values, and it's gonna be M here, right? So email. Once again, if you guys like rotate these around and you're like, oh, I actually want the phone here instead, you're gonna have to update all of these row values every single time in your automation, or else it's gonna be off. And instead of it sending, you know, if you moved phone here, instead of it sending maybe the Indeed email, it would say the Jono rating instead. So it can be problematic. So just making sure that you guys set it up appropriately. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll do that. And essentially, I'm actually gonna merge these all into one field, or one workflow here, just to make it a bit simpler. And the key, what we're gonna do is key equals screening, okay? So you'll see why in a second here, but let's go ahead and let's run this. And we're gonna select screening here. We're gonna see that the workflow has been initiated, and we've sent the HTTP request here. We can fetch the result, and we have our two variables here, email and key. So we'll go ahead and match this contact to the existing contact on file by selecting the email. This is a requirement of inbound webhooks, and we'll go into the inbound webhook trigger and select email. Okay, awesome. Now we're gonna have an if and else statement, and we're just gonna have scenario here. I'm just gonna label it whatever, and this one is gonna be screening approved. And as long as the inbound webhook trigger, the key is screening, then it's gonna go down this path, okay? And for the next one here, we can copy this over, and clone it, push it here, and delete this. And it's gonna go to the same webhook, but instead of it being screening here, it's gonna be rejected, okay? And we'll go ahead and save that. And then we'll add another branch where it's gonna be rejected. And as long as the key is rejected, then it's gonna go down this path, right? And this is just gonna make it super simple. All of these modules are just gonna be in one, right? So let's say for the screening approved, what we wanna do is send an email to that user. And essentially here, we just want, when somebody is approved, right? We've taken a look at the voice recorder, we've taken a look at the resume, everything looks good to go. Then we just want to send an email or a text message or both, just letting them know, hey, congratulations, you've made it past the screening. We'd love to set up an interview with you, right? At that point in time, they can book on your calendar. So we're sending them a calendar invite. They can book on that calendar to set up an appointment or a meeting or an interview with you, right? So that's essentially the whole purpose. And then with the rejected path, we just want to make sure that when people are rejected, we're sending an email out to them, which would be like, you know, maybe 4 or 8 hours later or a day later saying, hey, thank you so much for applying. We've ended up going in a different direction. So let's go ahead and let's set that up right now. Okay, sweet. So I'll start off with the rejected one because it's just a bit easier. So we're gonna wait 2 days here. Time doesn't matter, you can choose whatever you want. And then we're just gonna send an email. And I'm not gonna focus too hard on exactly what to say here because I don't think it matters, and I think you guys can figure out exactly what works best for your business, but this is just a rough kind of example. Oops, we're gonna do username, email, and then whatever you wanna say. Thanks for applying, and you can just do their first name. And then we'll just say, hey, first name, or hey, you know, in my case it would be Jono. Hey, Jono, Thank you so much for applying to our, and we'll go ahead and choose position. This will be like sales or marketing or event coordinator position. Thanks for applying to our sales position. Unfortunately, we ended up going in another direction. Thank you so much for your time and effort. We wish you all the best in your future endeavors. Sincerely, and then your name. Right. Okay, perfect. And oh my gosh, username and full name. So something like that, you guys can kind of put your own twist on it, but anytime somebody gets rejected, now we're gonna send out that email, right? Sweet. And then we can just go ahead and test that. So we'll run once and we'll go back to our sheet and say they're rejected. And it's now go down this path, right? Which means that if we go into the enrollment history, this person is now currently in it and they have been registered. They found, so it's a random thing coming through. They've created the contact and matched it to my email. They've gone down the if or else statement and now they're just at the wait step for 8 hours, right? And in 8 hours, you can see that the person is here, I'm here. And in 8 hours, it's gonna send over that rejected application and it's gonna break my heart. It really, it really will. Sweet, and then the next one is screening approved. So we can go ahead and and also if you guys want, you can just DND this client and select DND enabled for all channels, just so that you don't send any messages or emails or whatever out to that person afterwards. Okay, next one is when somebody's approved, we want to set up an appointment with, or an interview with them. So how we can go about doing this is send an email from yourself. So we'll send it from the user. And the reason I'm using the user and email and the first name and stuff like that is because maybe you have different people on your team doing this and there might not be one person responsible for it. So you can kind of rotate it easily between other employees on your team. It doesn't have to be, like if you hard code it to one particular person, that means that anytime you want to update that person and that person quits or whatever, now you have to effectively go through all of these automations again and change it. Whereas if you just wanted to essentially switch it with these custom parameters, you just have to go into the initial workflow where it assigns a user to that person and then you just change it and that person is now officially assigned, and it makes it a million times easier. If you just use custom parameters like this, it'll make your life a million times easier. You'll save so much freaking time. I promise you on the maintenance of these workflows. Okay, subject, congratulations. We'd love to have an interview. Okay, perfect. Hey, contact first name. Congratulations. We'd love to set up an interview between, I'm just gonna say, Jono, yourself and Jono. Please book an appointment or book an interview here. Okay, we'll have to have the link to the interview here, and then we can sign off on this email. You guys can really write whatever it is that you want. I'm just gonna go through it pretty fast. Username. Okay, awesome. So we have to have this link to the interview, right? So we'll go ahead and do that. Now, in the settings tab, we're gonna open up the settings here and we're gonna create a new link where people can book appointments through. I always like to have a standalone calendar specifically for booking appointments or anything, right? That way it's like a standalone calendar, has one purpose. It's not used by multiple people. It's not used for multiple functions. And the reason why I do this is because I only want that calendar to trigger one automation afterwards. I don't want to have to deal with that triggering multiple different automations. I just want one automation per one calendar. It makes my life way easier. So we'll go ahead and we're going to select a calendar here. And we'll go and create a calendar. Oh my gosh, they make this so freaking confusing. I'm just gonna go ahead and select round robin, and I'm gonna do first round interview. In this recording, guys, we're only gonna do one round, but by showing you how to do the first round, you'll also know how to do the second round as well. And we can go ahead and create a description here. Please schedule a time that works best for you. Okay, perfect. And then I'm just gonna select myself, and great. So I'm gonna confirm this. First round interview. Okay. Sweet. And I'm just gonna figure out where this is. First round interview. Okay, well that's not confusing at all. I think it's this one though. I accidentally created two with virtually the same names. Okay, perfect. So here it is. So you can do contact first name, first round interview. We're gonna have to go in and edit it again. And I just wanna make sure essentially that you assign yourself to it and you select Google Meet, right? You wanna make sure that it's a Google Meet appointment that you're setting so that you can just jump on a call. You can do Zoom, you can do phone, you can do whatever you want, but me personally, I like to do Google Meets. And then the only other thing that we want to make sure here, you can fill out all the different, you can customize this however you want, but the main thing here is we really need to be pay close attention to this form here, right? We need to pay attention to this form and create a new form to add in. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back. I'm just gonna open up another tab here. We're gonna create a form specifically for this interview. So, and I'll explain in a second why, but let me just kind of walk you through building it first, and then we'll explain the rationale behind it. So we're gonna start from scratch. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna have first name, last name, email, and phone number. This email field is going to be hidden here, okay? And if you guys want this, you can have it. I'm just gonna go ahead and delete it. And we're gonna click save here, right? The reason why we want this email hidden is for the same reason we wanted it hidden in the last place, because we wanna make sure that when people land on this page, we are passing in the URL parameter. So I'm gonna unhide this and show you guys what it looks like. We wanna make sure that when we pass it into this page, so it might actually be better if I go here and give you guys an example of what this calendar looks like. But if we share it here, okay? And we go ahead and open this up. We don't want to give people the option to essentially be like, you know, my email is actually something else. It's tommy@gmail.com. Like, we don't want that, because then it's gonna change the contact to somebody else, right? And that's bad. So what we can do here is we can just go email, once again, equals jcc@gmail.com. And now all of that information is gonna be updated. We can do this for the first name, last name, phone, email, right? So we can have email equals whatever, it's gonna load here. We can also do phone equals 604-000-0000, and first name equals Jono, and last name equals Catlif. And then when we kind of go back in here and they select the information, all of the fields are going to be populated, right? But we're going to populate it, but we're also going to hide the email field so they don't have the option to change that email and then assign this appointment to somebody else, because they might do that and then you're going to be sitting there thinking, well, who the hell am I talking to, right? This isn't the person that I sent the email to. So it's always just important to hide that email field. So we're going to go back to our form here, and we're just going to make sure this is hidden. Perfect. And then in the form builder here, we're going to go ahead and edit this one more time. And this is going to be employee test appointment. So this is what we're going to name it. and we're just gonna go and make sure that we have that particular form selected. So in this case, it's form 95. We can go ahead and save that and we're good to go. Sweet. So now back to this screening, we have the link for the form, right? And we can close this. And what I like to do is I like to have a one-time link. I don't like giving people unlimited access to my calendar. Sometimes I'll have people like booking an appointment for an interview, canceling it, and then booking another one, canceling it, booking another one, canceling it. It's like, you know, like by the time you've done that once, I don't even want to hire you anymore, right? If you can't even manage your time to jump on a call with a potential, you know, position that you'd want to work at for, you know, the next 2 or 3 years, like if you can't schedule your time properly to, you know, respect my calendar and respect my time, then it's probably not going to work out between us. So I don't want people to be able to cancel and then rebook. So what I like to do is just share and make sure it's a one-time link here, and we'll copy and paste that. But instead of actually going in the calendar here, what we'll do is we'll generate a one-time link. So we'll generate a one-time booking link, and we'll choose the first round interview calendar here. Sweet. And yeah, we'll essentially just link it here. So we'll go back into the custom values, generate a one-time booking link, and this is the calendar, right? We can send a test here if we want to test this out, but essentially what we want to do is add query parameters. Now, usually you'd start with a question mark and you'd be like email equals whatever, but when this link gets sent out, there already is query parameters. So we're just going to add the and we're going to go email equals, and we're going to copy the client's email. Oh my gosh. Copy the client's email here. And then I'm going to do the phone as well. And then phone, oops. You can see here, I didn't add the key. So phone equals this, and first underscore name equals, and we'll go ahead and choose the first name, and last underscore name equals, and we'll go ahead and choose the last name here. So when we send out this calendar, this one-time calendar, if they book it once, they can't do it again, we're automatically gonna have their email in that hidden field, which they can't change, but it's attributed to that particular client. And then the phone number is gonna be there, and their first name and their last name is gonna be there, which means it's just easier for them to fill out. Perfect. So we can go ahead and do that. We'll save this, and we're gonna test this out. So coming back here, we're going to change this to false. We're gonna run this scenario here to wait for the execution, okay? We're gonna run it again, and we're gonna click screening equals true. So now what's gonna happen is it came through, it sent it down the screening path. We received that in Go High Level. It found the contact and updated the contact. It went down the path of screening. It generated the one-time link, and now it sent me an email. And if I go into my contact here, it says, congratulations. We'd love to set up an interview between you, yourself, and Jono. And obviously you'd only put yourself in, you know, you'd write your name if somebody else was sending out the email, setting up the appointment or the interview between you and the candidate. Please book an interview here, right? Okay, so you can see I did actually the URL parameters wrong here. So no, I didn't. So if you copy this whole thing in, it should technically work. So if we enter in 11:30, last name, first name, phone, obviously the first name should be coming before the last name, but the phone number is here. So this is working perfectly. But the thing is that the actual execution of the link looks really messed up because half of it's hyperlinked. If they just click on the part that's hyperlinked, it's not gonna work properly. So what we need to do is just go back to this automation here, and we're gonna copy all of this. I'm just gonna make sure there's no weird spacing here. Okay, so it was my fault, there was weird spacing, but I'm gonna copy this whole thing and I'm gonna hyperlink it, and I'm gonna push it to this URL and new self window and click save. And now this is all one link. So when it comes out, it'll just be one link being sent straight to the person. Okay, perfect. So now what we've done is we've gone through the process of when somebody applies on Indeed, we send out an automated message. We also get the email from Indeed. We get the email out, the first name, last name, and the position, and we send follow-up reminders for them to fill out our questionnaire, which is a screening questionnaire. Once they fill that screening questionnaire, it's going to update Google Sheets, and it's also going to update Google Sheets. And then it's gonna be a manual step where we have to approve the screening process. Once that screening process is approved, then it'll automatically either reject the candidate and send them a notification saying, hey, you've been rejected, so sorry and best of luck. Or it'll say, hey, congratulations, we'd love to set up a first round interview. And then it's gonna send a calendar link for them to book that interview. Okay, perfect. So that's where we're at right now. Essentially what we need to do from here moving forward is we need to make sure that we send them notifications for when they book that calendar appointment or that interview appointment. So what we're gonna do is, once again, we're gonna come back into Go High Level, and we're going to create another workflow. Surprise, surprise. We're gonna start from scratch. And this is gonna send notifications for the person, letting them know that their appointment is coming up. I'm gonna keep this pretty brief just because you can customize it however you want, but I'll kind of show you what I like to do. So we can go ahead and say, we'll say interview request number 1, and what's gonna trigger this is an appointment. I like to do appointment status, and all of my appointments are automatically confirmed. So when the appointment status is confirmed, which is an automated process on my end, it just, when somebody books, it automatically confirms. And when they're in the calendar, and we have to select the calendar first round interview, then this workflow is gonna trigger, okay? So if they book an appointment in another calendar, it's not gonna trigger this, only in that one calendar, right? So one workflow per one calendar is what I like to do. We can go ahead and we can send an email to the user, right? Sweet, so we'll go ahead and say first name. You can see how it gets a bit repetitive here by always entering this information in. And subject is interview confirmed. And you can just write in your business name here. Awesome. Now we'll go ahead and say, hey, contact first name. Thanks for booking an interview with Jono at, and then we're gonna confirm the time here. So how we do that is we go into appointment here, and we're gonna do appointment start time. So we're gonna do it like 2 p.m. So thanks for booking an appointment with Jono at 2 p.m. And then we're gonna go and choose start date. And then that should be good to go. We'll have to double check this just to make sure it works. This is a confirmation of that appointment. If you haven't done so already, you can add this interview into your calendar, and then we can just go ahead and click the link here to add to Google Calendar and also add to iCalendar. If you need to cancel, you can go ahead and do so here. And you can also add a cancellation link, and then, or a rescheduling link. I probably wouldn't do this in an interview, but this is just kind of giving you guys some examples. Best, and then we'll do user full name. Okay, perfect. So that's that. You can add a wait step here, and you can go event appointment time, and maybe you want to do like 1 day before. Send another reminder, but I'm just gonna do, in this instance, 30 minutes before, just to kind of skip this and make it this video a bit more short, just because it's not the purpose is necessarily these sequences, but you can just say 30 minutes before the appointment, you can send a message, hey, contact first name, it's user first name from the company, just sending you a message to remind you of our interview in 30 minutes. Here's the Google Meet link. And then we can go ahead and add that link to the meeting, which is the calendar link here. And I'll also put that in the first email here. So the interview link. Okay, great. So when they get it, they'll see the calendar link, which will be the Google Meet link, which was generated automatically on this calendar here. So if you remember, when we created this calendar, in the meeting details, we had the Google Meet, right, as the location for the meeting. And that Google Meet link will automatically be generated if you've connected your Gmail account into Go High Level. And it'll automatically be generated, and it will be previewed here as well as right here. Okay, sweet. So that's essentially it. We can turn this on, and we'll go ahead and test this out. So just because I messed up this meeting link last time, we'll go ahead and hit screening again is approved. And we'll go into the contact here. And in case this takes too long to kind of wait for that new meeting, we'll go ahead and book an appointment, 11:30 p.m., and we can schedule the meeting. Okay, perfect. So we've gone ahead, we've scheduled the meeting here. The meeting's been approved. One last step, guys, that I forgot to mention here is that when this meeting has been approved, we just want to remove from the workflow the last step that we did. So employee screening approved, right? We just want to remove it from there because, you know, let's say you approve somebody's screening, right? And you're like, okay, please, we send off an email to book that appointment, right? So, or book that interview. So if we kind of come back just to make it a bit more visual, we send off this email here. Congratulations, we'd like to schedule a second round interview or whatnot with you. And it sends the link, right? Maybe you send this like 5 times. Maybe you send this like 7 times, right? Maybe you just want to follow up and make sure you're dealing with so many people. You're not just leaving it up to chance with one email. You're sending out tons of emails, right? You just want to make sure that you cancel that workflow out when they do book the appointment, because the last thing you want is for somebody to book an interview and then you're still sending a message out being like, hey, can you book this interview? Since they've already booked it, we cancel the last workflow. Okay, awesome. So essentially that's pretty much it. It's going to lead them up to the appointment. You'll go through your questionnaire with clients on the call, and you know, if you liked it, you can go ahead and click you know, approved here. Now, in this instance, you can also have a second round interview as well, right? I'm not going to go through that just because the steps to essentially doing the second round interview are essentially the exact same as the steps to do the first round interview, and I just don't want this video to drag out longer than it already has. So that's essentially it. You've automated the process in essentially getting clients from Indeed, right? When somebody inquires on Indeed, I'm just gonna go through workflow again. When they inquire on Indeed, you send them an automated response, and then from there, you follow up with emails to get them to book out the screening form. When they book out the screening form, then it'll update the Google Sheet, and you'll have to manually approve. And once you go through the sheet and you manually approve, then it'll send out a interview request to the person, which they'll have to book a calendar invite with you. And then once they book that calendar invite with you, then it'll send notifications to that person that you have a meeting or the interview, and then at the interview, you're either gonna say, hey, I wanna hire this person, or I don't. Now we did not build out 2 things here. We didn't build out this create Google Sheets row and also this create Google Sheets row as well. So essentially just kind of really quickly summarizing this, when they book the first interview, right? So when this is booked, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna have a webhook here, and we're gonna send it to a new make workflow. And what we're trying to do here is, oops, this is the wrong one. We wanna make sure that when they book that interview, this is automatically checked, right? Like you don't have to check this. This is automatically checked so that when you're scanning hundreds or thousands of applicants, you can see at a glance who's scheduled and who hasn't. So this wouldn't be checked here. So all you do is when they booked the appointment, you'd send something to make.com to update this Google Sheet. So we'll go ahead and we'll add another scenario here, and we'll just title this, test employee booked interview. We'll do a webhook here, a custom webhook, and we're going to create another one. We'll call it employee booked appointment test, obviously with as many spelling mistakes as humanly possible. We'll copy this address here, click OK, and paste it here so that, and click save, so that when this happens, we will open up Google Sheets, we'll search for that particular row, same kind of deal as before. It's a bit repetitive, but we'll open up, we'll select from all, we'll get this URL up here, this ID, we'll search Google Sheets for that ID, we'll make sure that we're connected to the right Google form or else we're not going to have the permission. We'll select the right sheet here, which is sheet 1. And then we're going to find the client by an ID, and that ID will be equal to the contact ID, which we don't have here. So I'm just going to put A for now, just so I can save this. I'm going to click run. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, we'll click run, and we're going to go back. I'm just going to remove myself from this workflow so we can enter it in again. Perfect. You can't be entered into the same workflow twice and go high level. So sometimes when you're testing, you just want to make sure that you remove all the workflows, and we'll go and book this appointment again. Because it's a one-time link, it's no longer activated, but no worries. I believe we sent out another link. Okay, so we didn't. So for testing purposes, what we'll do is we'll close this and we'll generate just for testing purposes, we're gonna, generate a one-time link here. Round. So we'll do share one time, copy this link, and it should work now. Sweet. So we'll go ahead, select, and schedule the meeting. And now this is running. It's just waiting for this to be executed, which should happen now. Perfect. So we can map the variables here. So we have all these variables now accessible to us. We're just going to select contact ID. Go ahead and select that, press OK. And we're going to update the row, because by this point in the life cycle stage, the hiring, that person is already going to be on this sheet for sure if they've made it that far. So we just have to select this ID again, select from all, enter in the ID, choose this spreadsheet name by unmapping it, sheet 1. The row number will be this row number here. And all we have to do here is just first interview scheduled, F equals true. And we need to add a filter here where if this row has to exist. So essentially what's going on here is we're going to filter. So if the row does not exist, so if somehow they make it to this stage in the interview process and that row doesn't exist, then it's just going to filter the person out. The reason why we do that is because if they make it this far and that person doesn't exist for whatever reason, it will shut off the workflow and it'll stop it from working, right? So I just like having that filter here, and then as long as it works, then we're going to update the first interview scheduled to true. So essentially all they'll do is as soon as they apply or book that interview, this will be checked off and we're good to go. Alternatively, if you wanted, you could have a does not exist and exist path like we did previously. And you could update or create a new row if that row doesn't exist, but that's very unlikely for that scenario to ever happen. Okay. The only last thing worth mentioning here is maybe you want to send out a contract, right? So, you know, we made it up to the first round interview. We could essentially delete this because we're not going to do a second round interview here. And we could essentially, you know, if we liked that contact, then we could go ahead and send them off a contract, even invite them into our Slack if you wanted to. You know, essentially all we'd have to do for this is create one last step. So what we can do is we have up until column F. We're not going to do the second round interviews here, so we can go ahead and just hide these columns. And let's say you know, once that interview is scheduled, I jump on the call with the candidate, and I really like that guy, or that girl, or whatever, and we want to hire them, right? We can check this box and send off a contract. So we can go ahead and set that up. So in the last workflow that we built in make.com, we're going to go back, and this will actually be pretty simple to set up. We're going to go into this where essentially anytime we update this spreadsheet, something happens, right? We had it so that if we update the screening, we send off an interview request. If we update the rejected section, we send off the rejection mail. And we just need to add one more where if you get on the interview and you like the person you want to send the contract, you check column I. Okay, so in this, you can go ahead and add one more row here, and we'll clone this over. We'll delete this module. We're going to auto align, and this will be hire/contract send. And in this, we're just going to do value is equal to true. Once again, this is going to be case insensitive, and the starting row is going to be equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, just because there's two hidden fields there, right? So if we expand this out, there's those two hidden fields that we have to account for as well. Okay, great. And the key here is going to be hire. So we can go ahead and run this, and we'll click the check mark here, and you can see it didn't actually work here. Let's see what row it was. Column starts 9. Oh, I selected the row start. We actually have to select the column start. Okay, so we'll try that again. We'll run it one more time. Wait for new data, and we'll click it again. Okay, sweet. So we've sent it over here, and we just got to go back into that last workflow that we created. Automation, we'll do test. So we'll go into the screening test here, approved. We'll add one more scenario here. So remember how whether they were rejected or they're screened approved, they'd come in here, and depending on whatever they clicked in this Google Sheet would determine which path they go down. So if they went down the screening approved path, they go down this route. If they're rejected, they go down this route. We just have to add one more route here, and this is called hire/contract. And the key here would have whatever we assigned here, which would be hire. Sweet. And then we could send an email over to these guys saying, congratulations, we'd love to hire you. Hey Jono, congratulations. We'd love to bring you on on board. I'll send over a contract right now for you to sign. Okay, perfect. And then we can add one more step here where we can send documents and contracts. So in Go High Level, you can have okay, this is just going to take a couple seconds. We will see whichever tab is the fastest. Where is it here? So you can go into payments here and you can have documents and contracts, and then you can just create a template, right? And in this template, you could just have it as like a hiring template, right? Where any new person you bring on board, so we could go ahead and click new here, and pardon me, you can just make sure to select this as the hiring template. So you go ahead and build whatever it is you want. We'd love to hire you. And then please sign now, like immediately. Okay, perfect. So that's more or less exactly what my contracts look like. And then you just make sure that it's signed by the actual recipient, and you can go ahead and save and call this hiring template. I'm not going to go super in depth into this, but essentially you could do a hiring template here and then use this new template here. Save actions from users. You're going to send it from yourself or whoever it is, and click save. And I'll just refresh this page here just because it said new template, but that's going to refresh into the updated name that I just created for it here. And that's essentially it, right? You can send over a contract immediately to people, right? Which will be the hiring template, and they'll just get a contract that they can go ahead and sign. So we'll give it a shot here. We'll delete this data. Start it again. We'll click interview approved, or maybe I'll call this hire, and I'm going to open up that inbox. In the email, you'll see the contract coming in. You can go ahead, view the document. If you're the employee that just got hired, you can go ahead and sign, and that's it, right? So essentially in this entire system that we've built here, we've gone from how we can get applicants off Indeed without having to do any work, right? We get their information, we get them to go through a screening process. Once they're through the screening process, then if we reject them, we send them a rejection email. If we add them onto the team, or sorry, if we approve the screening, then we'll send them a request to book an interview with us. Once they book the interview, then what's gonna happen is we're gonna send notifications reminding them of that interview all the way up to the date. And then on the call, if you decide that you wanna hire the person, you just have to click approved, and it's gonna send over a thank you and also a contract from them to sign to join the team. So thank you guys so much if you managed to make it all the way to the frickin' end here. If you guys like content just like this video, please make sure to subscribe down below. It means the world to me, and hit the thumbs up button as well. If you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to hit me up on Instagram or somewhere else, and I'd love to see how we can either work together or help. So thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.